Hey there, everybody. I haven't seen you for about a month or 6 weeks, but it's just been a little bit hectic. But if you've noticed, I have been putting tons of shorts on my YouTube channel, and these are kind of a variety of things. Some of them are general, some of them specific. They're more of the kind of light-hearted, frivolous side, although I have put like 3 or 4, maybe 5 more political ones on there. Most of them are to do with star signs, but because I made them all on TikTok, some of them as a result of TikTok suggestions, so they would include, star sign, zodiac haircut, zodiac fashion, wedding ideas. So the idea is to, try and get a lot of views so that I can earn more money on my YouTube channel, because usually I can't monetize the more political kind of ones, right? What I'm talking about today is some transits for March, something really important and bizarre that's going to be happening for the rest of the year, and we're going to have a little recap. So if you do fancy taking a look at the shorts, do a little rush through. I mean, some of them might appeal, some might not, but in general, there's a lot of music and some graphics and some information. I'm sure you guys will kind of enjoy it. It's just on a lighthearted side, bit of a distraction. Okay, and I would appreciate some likes and shares on there. As I say, it really helps me in terms of boosting up YouTube income, particularly for the future. Now, March is kind of interesting because we have Mercury going retrograde at the 14th, just before the Ides of March, which we know from Julius Caesar is all about betrayal, deception, mixed messages kind of thing, stabbing in the back. And we also already have a Venus retrograde in Aries, Mercury going retrograde in Aries too on the 14th, and we have the full moon on kind of the 15th or the 14th. I think this is really interesting because what we see now with Trump, Zelensky, and this whole deal with the minerals, and will he make a deal, won't he, what's going to happen with Ukraine, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors and deception. For example, these minerals, Galloway was saying, have already been sold off to the UK in exchange for this 100-year ridiculous treaty that they're doing with Ukraine. So if that's off the table, what sort of deal is Trump going to make with Zelensky? Obviously, for those of us who are very skeptical of this whole war agenda, we were rather, obviously, you must have enjoyed seeing Zelensky getting put right in his place, which is about time. I mean, what Trump said is absolutely 100%. He doesn't have the cards. And another thing, people say he was bullied. Is it not bullying to be frog marching or capturing citizens off the streets, sending them to the front line to almost certain death in a war that is absolutely pointless? They're fighting over cities that have been in 4 different countries over 100 years. Not only that, they're fighting for the interests of BlackRock. Now, I read today on Twitter, Rishi Sunak saying that they must take the frozen $300 billion of Russian assets that has been frozen in the West or in the Western bank accounts and use it to rebuild Ukraine. Who do you think that's going to get that money? BlackRock, and probably the Kagan clan, Victoria Nuland's husband, who often is involved in reconstruction, like in Iraq and I think it was Serbia as well. So that money is being reallocated straight to BlackRock. Now, what I can't understand is it was made clear from the start, particularly in this country, no one was really even hiding the fact that they were using Ukraine as a wedge to weaken the Russian state so that they could perhaps inspire some sort of revolution or overthrow of Putin, and with the aim of eventually balkanizing Russia. Now look what's happening in Syria. Mass murder of the Alawites, the Christians, the Druze people, as a result of that Assad regime falling. Now all Arab regimes, even Galloway says it, are brutal to an extent. They have to be to hold those countries together. Then the West insists on destroying them like they've done in Libya, Syria. They keep doing it, and yet the public keeps supporting it because after everyone's moved on, they don't report the mess that's going on afterwards, do they? So they've made a mess of Syria. Just imagine this repeated on the scale of a country the size of Russia with nuclear, biological and chemical weapons falling into a total disaster. I mean, already just when the breakup of the Soviet Union and all these storms getting independence, for example, Uzbekistan, a huge amount of nuclear stroke biological weapons there was no longer properly sort of guarded and audited, and that found its way onto the black market. Not to forget as well, Tucker Carlson saying a lot of these weapons that have been sent to Zelensky are being resold on the black market and landing up in places like Mexico with the cartels. people just aren't seeing it. They just think, oh, the media sell them a simplistic narrative, and it's so easy for people to grasp. Russia bad, Ukraine good, Zelensky brave, fighting back against like the monster, and they can grasp that. But when you try and cut through that with some facts and some logic, they're not interested because they like the simplistic narrative. It makes them feel quite emotionally good that they're supporting the right side, and there's this kind of moralistic thing they get on board with, and you cannot cut through that with any facts or logic. No way. So, I just wanted to continue to chat about this whole Russia thing going on. So, well, we'll see what happens. But with the whole retrogrades and the full moon, I don't expect anything to happen before April. And I think we'll receive a lot of conflicting information, and it's really hard to see through what's going on there. Now, we also have the thing with UKIP and Rupert Lowe. Rupert Lowe, according to the station UNN, they had surmised from reading all Rupert Lowe's tweets that these were probably constructed by Nicholas Lisek. It's a journalist who's also come out of nowhere. Suddenly he's everywhere. As you know, David Icke says, that's always a red flag. Works strongly with Elizabeth Oakeshott. It's almost like they were managing his account, trying to boom him up and getting him really popular on Twitter, when he's got a company that is heavily invested in net zero going ahead. He's not our guy. Whatever he says is undermined by his history, his past, and his business interests. Now, he's been throwing out of reform. Well, who cares? Will it weaken Farage? No. Farage always comes back like a cat with 9 lives. There were always rifts and conflicts in the Brexit Party, in UKIP. He always comes back because he is kind of one of the chosen ones on the right to lead the right? So he's always on his way back. Talking of Zelensky, giving him more money, what exactly is he going to use it for? If America aren't going to send him any more weapons, Europe do not have the weapon stocks. And the lead times on creating more tanks, more weapons is very, very long, particularly as there's an energy crisis and they're not even making, don't even have steel factories like in the UK. So what is he actually going to spend that money on? He can only account for about 1/3 of it. The rest of it has probably been filtered into the accounts of numerous officials. In fact, one low-level Defense Department official was found with something like $15 million worth of cash in a suitcase. So all this money is being misappropriated. And the fact that our government is so gung-ho about this whole Ukraine thing and is going along with every aspect of it should awaken us all that, whiff there, they just beyond the pale in terms of corruption and are not looking after the interests of the Ukrainians, this country, or any other country at all. Now, another thing with Ukraine, with this money, this lunatic Christy Friedland, who you will remember her from the whole COVID thing. She was an official, or the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada. Apparently she's going to run now to replace Trudeau. Who knows when that election's happening? Is he possibly a dictator? Because he doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and I thought he resigned. She said that the UK must lend or make available their nuclear weapons so that Canada can attack America if need be. Does she not know that the UK lease their nuclear weapons from the United States, and all the United States have to do is turn the switch off and they are not available to be used? So there's no circumstance in which the UK would make them available to Canada because America wouldn't allow it. This is the level of incompetence, ridiculousness, and farcery going on in the higher echelons. But of course, your average normie just won't see it. So rather pleased on the surface with what happened with Trump and Zelensky. But we've got to see how it plays out with the retrogrades, the Ides of March, the full moon. It's all up in the air, all kind of crazy. But I do think as well, if you think back now to all the movies we watched, like 007 and all that, it was always Russia bad, the Russian spy, From Russia with Love. There's so many of those films, and I think it's embedded in the heads of so many people. They still think in terms of countries and corrupt bad leaders. The bad guy's always over there, and our Secret Service and our country, we fighting for it, that this is, they're fighting for good. They still see it in that way because they're addicted to what goes on in the movies and they can't readapt to what really is going on. Okay, haven't talked about much astrology yet. That will be in part 2.